Picture a land as vast as the continental United States, with jungles thicker than any American forest, farmlands stretching beyond the Midwest, and beaches longer than California's coast. That's Brazil, a nation of 215 million people, the biggest economy in Latin America, and a goldmine of resources that could shape America's future. For President Donald Trump, back in the White House in 2025, Brazil is a land of staggering opportunity and infuriating roadblocks. It's the world's breadbasket, filling your supermarket with beef and your smartphone with minerals. It's a geopolitical heavyweight, sitting at the table with global powers. But it's led by a leftist president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who cozies up to America's enemies, China, Iran, Venezuela, while a shadowy deep state of judges and elites shields corruption and crime from drug lords to political cronies. Tonight, we're diving into Brazil through Trump's eyes, a complex giant caught in a tug-of-war between the United States and its rivals. From its booming industries to its cutthroat politics, we'll unpack why Brazil matters to every American, how Trump plans to wrestle it back, and what's at stake as the country barrels toward a make-or-break election in 2026. This is a saga of trade wars, corruption scandals, and a battle for control in America's backyard. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Meet Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, or Lula, the man steering Brazil's ship. A former factory worker turned union firebrand, Lula was president from 2003 to 2010, lifting millions from poverty with social programs that made him a hero to Brazil's poor. But his story took a dark turn. In 2017, he was convicted of corruption, tied to a massive bribery scheme that rocked Brazil. Locked up, he seemed finished, until Brazil's Supreme Court tossed his charges in 2021, claiming judicial bias. By 2023, Lula was back in power, staging one of the wildest comebacks in political history. To his fans, he's a champion of the downtrodden, fighting for the Amazon and the underdog. To Trump, he's a socialist nightmare, undermining everything America First stands for. Lula's agenda is like a punch in Trump's face. He's hosting the COP30 climate summit in 2025, rallying world leaders in Brazil's Amazon. To push carbon cuts, globalists talk that Trump, a climate skeptic, calls a waste of money. He's a cheerleader for BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, a club Trump sees as a gang of anti-American powers plotting to dethrone the dollar. And then there's the personal jab. In 2024, Lula backed Kamala Harris, branding Trump a threat to democracy. Brazilian diplomats call their relationship absolutely incompatible, and it's no mystery why. Trump thrives on loyalty and deal-making. Lula, with his globalist dreams and cozy chats with America's foes, is the opposite. This clash isn't just about egos, it's about power. Lula's leadership pulls Brazil toward rivals like China and Venezuela, frustrating Trump's vision of a Latin America firmly in America's corner. And at home, a deep state of activist judges, like those who freed Lula, fuels Trump's distrust, setting the stage for a high-stakes showdown. If there's one country that gets Trump's blood boiling, it's China. And in Brazil, China's tentacles are everywhere. Since 2009, China has been Brazil's top trading partner, snapping up over $100 billion a year in soybeans, beef, and iron ore, more than the US, Brazil's #2 buyer. In 2023, Lula flew to Beijing, inking 15 deals worth $10 billion, from building roads to boosting tech exports. Brazil even started trading in its own currency, the real, and China's yuan, sidestepping the US dollar, a move that hits Trump's pride in American financial muscle. China's not just buying Brazil's goods, it's buying its future. Companies like BYD, a Chinese electric car giant, are setting up factories. State-backed firms are pouring cash into ports, railroads, and power plants, weaving Brazil into China's global web. There's buzz about Brazil joining the Belt and Road Initiative, Beijing's trillion-dollar plan to build infrastructure worldwide. Trump calls it a debt trap to spread Chinese control, and he's not wrong to worry. Latin America has been America's sphere for centuries, and China's march into Brazil feels like a hostile takeover. Why does this matter to you? Brazil's got resources America needs to stay on top. Rare earth minerals used in electric. Car batteries, wind turbines, even fighter jets are the big prize. China controls 60% of global production and 90% of exports, but Brazil holds 23% of the world's reserves, locked in its jungles and mines. Trump's desperate to break China's chokehold, and he wants those minerals for American factories. His weapon? Tariffs, 10% on all imports, with threats of 60% on Chinese goods, to pressure Brazil to pick Team USA. It's a risky bet, and Trump's playing for keeps. China's appetite goes beyond minerals. Its factories rely on Brazilian soybeans to feed livestock, and its cities need Brazil's iron to build skyscrapers. If Brazil slips deeper into China's orbit, it could shift the balance of power in Latin America, leaving the US on the sidelines. Trump's already swinging back, using economic muscle to remind Brazil who's boss. China's not Trump's only headache. Lula's also warming up to Iran, a country Trump labels a terrorist state. In 2023, Lula met Iran's president at a BRICS summit, shaking hands and talking trade. When Iran joined BRICS in 2024, alongside Saudi Arabia and others, Brazil rolled out the welcome mat. Then came Iran's 2024 attack on Israel. Lula's government muttered concern, but refused to call it out, a dodge that infuriated Trump, who's vowed to crush Iran's influence. The BRICS alliance is a bigger thorn. It's not just a group of emerging economies. It's a platform for Russia, China, and now Iran to challenge the US dollar and American power. Lula's Brazil is a BRICS ringleader, hosting summits and pushing for a world where Uncle Sam isn't calling the shots. Russia's role in BRICS adds fuel to the fire. Lula's pitched peace talks for Ukraine that sound more like Russia's script than America's, and Trump's fed up with Moscow cozying up in Latin America. These friendships, China, Iran, Russia, yank Brazil away from the US and toward a bloc that Trump sees as a direct threat. He's likely to hit back, with tariffs to choke Brazil's exports, sanctions to isolate its BRICS buddies, or diplomatic snubs to send a message. But Brazil's too valuable to alienate completely, especially its economic heavyweights. Brazil's economy is a juggernaut, and three companies stand out: JBS, Embraer, and Vale. JBS is the world's biggest meat processor, putting steak and chicken on American plates. In 2022, it pulled in $70 billion, with 49% from the US alone. Your local grocery? JBS's products are probably there, but it's got baggage, linked to Amazon deforestation and accused of price fixing, which jacked up meat prices under Biden. Trump's tariffs, 10% across the board, sting JBS, hiking costs for Americans. Still, JBS employs thousands in places like Texas and Iowa, so Trump might ease up to avoid killing jobs, while pushing for better trade deals. Embraer, Brazil's aerospace star, is another giant. Its KC-390 Millennium, a military transport plane, is snagging contracts from Portugal to South Korea, going toe-to-toe with Lockheed Martin's C-130. In April 2025, Embraer inked a deal with Turkey to explore a fifth-generation fighter jet, a stealth plane that could rival America's F-35. Trump's not thrilled. He doesn't want Brazil challenging Boeing or Lockheed, and his tariffs are already squeezing Embraer's US sales, adding complexity and costs, as its CEO griped. If Embraer gets too tight with Turkey, a NATO ally with a rocky US relationship, Trump could turn the screws to keep Brazil in line. Vale, the world's top iron ore producer, is less flashy but critical. Iron ore fuels steel for cars, bridges, and skyscrapers. The US imports millions of tons from Brazil, and Trump's tariffs aim to lock in Vale's supply over China, which buys even more. Vale's mines in Brazil's north employ tens of thousands, powering the country's economy. Trump sees it as a bargaining chip. If he can score favorable terms, He bolsters U.S. manufacturing while cutting China's lifeline. Then there's Brazil's mineral jackpot. The country holds 23% of global rare earth reserves, 22.5% of graphite, for graphene and batteries, and 90% of niobium, vital for jet engines and steel. These are the guts of America's tech and defense industries, and Trump's hungry for them. The U.S. leans on China for 75% of its rare earths, a dependency Trump calls a national security disaster. His fix is friendshoring, teaming up with allies like Brazil to secure these minerals. But Lula's openness to Chinese investors, like BYD's factories, throws a wrench in the plan. Trump might offer mining deals, but he'll demand Brazil ditch Beijing. It's a high-wire act, and he's not known for subtlety. Brazil's Amazon rainforest is the world's largest, a green sea spanning 2.7 million square miles. For Lula, it's a global gem, and he's betting big on it with the COP30 summit in 2025, where leaders will flock to Belém, Brazil, to push climate deals. Trump, who yanked the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement, thinks it's a globalist circus. He sees the Amazon as a resource to tap: mining, oil drilling, maybe logging, especially Brazil's offshore oil reserves, which rival Saudi Arabia's. Pressuring Lula to open the Amazon could spark a firestorm, but Trump's never shied away from a fight. Brazil's energy game is another battleground. The country's a biofuel leader, with ethanol from sugarcane. Powering millions of cars, it's also big in wind and solar. Trump, a die-hard oil and gas fan, might see Brazil's biofuels as a rival but also a partner. If he can snag access to ethanol or niobium, he'll use tariffs as leverage, offering breaks for deals. For Trump, Brazil's natural wealth is a bargaining chip, not a sacred trust, and he's ready to cash in. Now, let's hit the political powder keg. Freedom of speech, where Trump's passions flare. Brazil's Supreme Court, led by justices like Alexandra de Moraes, has clamped down on social media, especially X, owned by Trump's pal Elon Musk. In 2024, the court banned X for refusing to censor accounts accused of hate speech and disinformation, code, in Trump's view, for conservative voices. It slapped a $1.4 million fine in 2025 and froze Starlink's bank accounts, Musk's satellite internet outfit. Musk called it aggressive censorship, and Trump's Truth Social sued Moraes, arguing he's stomping on American free speech values. This is personal for Trump. He fought big tech censorship in his first term, accusing platforms of silencing conservatives. In Brazil, he sees the same script: a leftist government and activist judges muzzling dissent. The crackdown feeds a narrative of a Brazilian deep state, a term Trump and his ally, former President Jair Bolsonaro, used to slam elites rigging the game. Trump's backing Musk, rallying Brazilians on X and Truth Social who feel their voices are choked. It's striking a chord with millions, especially Bolsonaro's base, who see the court as Lula's enforcer. This isn't just about tweets, it's about power. Brazil's right wing smells blood, accusing the Supreme Court of shielding Lula while crushing free expression. Trump's support for Musk is a beacon for those voters. He's fighting their fight, setting the stage for a bigger clash. Brazil's 2026 presidential election is the main event, and Trump's watching like a hawk. Lula, now 80, might run again or back a Workers' Party successor. On the other side, Bolsonaro's movement, though he's barred until 2030, is roaring, with stars like São Paulo Governor Tarcísio de Freitas ready to pounce. Trump sees this as his shot to back a nationalist who'll ditch Lula's globalism and align with America First. Free markets, tough borders, no love for China or Venezuela. Trump's got skin in the game. In 2025, Bolsonaro's wife, Michelle, graced his inauguration, cementing their bond. Trump's 2024 win has lit a fire under Brazil's right, who see him as a playbook for toppling elites. His tariffs, 10% on all imports, up to 50% on some, are squeezing Brazil's economy, hiking costs for beef and iron ore, a shaky economy, with inflation or a soaring dollar, could sink Lula's party, boosting the opposition in 2026. The election process is a lightning rod. Brazil's electronic voting machines, praised for speed, are slammed by Bolsonaro's supporters for lacking a paper trail. They want auditable votes, like printed receipts, echoing Trump's 2020 fraud claims. In 2026, the Electoral Court will be led by Cássio Nunes Marques, a Bolsonaro appointee who's signaled openness to transparency debates, calling concerns legitimate in 2021. While paper ballots need congressional approval and are a long shot, Nunes Marques could push public audits, a move Trump might quietly cheer. Bolsonaro's base has a trump card, the deep state narrative. They claim the Supreme Court, electoral bosses, and media helped Lula get elected in 2022, a charge with no hard proof, but tons of traction. The court's track record doesn't help. It cleared Lula's corruption charges in 2021, tied to the Lava Jato scandal, a $2 billion bribery scheme involving Brazil's oil giant Petrobras and firms like Odebrecht. The scandal didn't stop at Brazil's borders. Odebrecht's bribes rigged deals from Peru to Venezuela. In 2025, Lula granted asylum to Peru's former First Lady, Nadine Heredia, accused of laundering Odebrecht's cash. The Supreme Courts also freed drug lords like André do Rap in 2020 on a technicality and softened drug laws in 2024, letting users carry up to 40 grams of marijuana. Critics say it's a free pass for dealers. In 2025, another judge reportedly sprung a trafficker with 200 kilos of cocaine, citing good behavior. To Trump, this is a deep state of judges and elites shielding their own, just like they did Lula. These moves fuel distrust. A 2021 CIA visit, warning Bolsonaro not to undermine the vote, and Biden's quick nod to Lula's win only add gasoline. Trump won't meddle openly. Lula could retaliate by cozying up to China or hitting U.S. goods. Instead, he'll use soft power, ex-posts, conservative rallies, or allies like Argentina's Javier Milei to question Brazil's system, boosting the idea that Lula's win was dirty. Trump's view of Brazil isn't just about trade or politics. He's laser-focused on security, and he's got a serious problem with Lula's leadership. Take Venezuela, a thorn in America's side. Nicolas Maduro's regime is a disaster, stolen elections, jailed opponents, and a wrecked economy. Trump brands Maduro a dictator backed by Iran and Russia, and he's livid that Lula stays silent. Instead of slamming Maduro's abuses, Lula plays buddy-buddy at summits like BRICS, swapping smiles and trade deals with left-wing leaders. For Trump, this isn't just spineless, it's a betrayal, letting a rogue state fester right in America's backyard. Lula's silence speaks volumes. In 2024, when Venezuela's elections were called a sham, Brazil mumbled about dialogue instead of calling out fraud. Compare that to Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil's president from 2018 to 2022, who bashed Maduro and backed U.S. sanctions. Bolsonaro dealt with 500,000 Venezuelan refugees flooding Brazil's border, launching a program to house them, a move Trump respected. Lula's kid gloves approach looks like he's shielding a dictator, and Trump's not buying it. The drug trade is even worse. Brazil's ports, like Santos near São Paulo, are open pipelines for cocaine, flooding Europe and fueling global networks that hit American streets. Trump wants Lula to go hard. Raids, arrests, whatever it takes to crush the cartels. He's offering help, DEA intel, police training, maybe naval patrols. But Lula's fix is all about social programs, jobs, schools, not the tough policing Trump demands. Worse, Brazil's Supreme Court is making it easier for drug lords. In 2020, a judge freed a top cartel boss, André do Rap, on a technicality, though the decision was later reversed. In 2024, the court decriminalized carrying up to 40 grams of marijuana, which critics say lets small-time dealers off the hook. In 2025, another judge reportedly sprung a trafficker with 200 kilos of cocaine, citing good behavior. To Trump, This is a revolving door for criminals, proof of a deep state of judges and elites protecting their own, just like they shielded Lula from corruption charges. If Lula won't act, Trump's ready to tie trade deals to security, squeezing Brazil's exports until he sees results. It's a showdown that could define their relationship. What's the big picture? For Donald Trump, Brazil is a high-stakes chessboard in a global showdown. It's a land of jaw-dropping wealth. Beef in your burger, minerals in your phone, iron in your bridges that America can't lose. It's a strategic ally in a region where China's shadow looms large. But it's a migraine, led by a leftist, who pals around with America's enemies and leans on a deep state that frees drug lords, rigs elections, and exports corruption. From Supreme Court rulings that spring traffickers to Lula's silence on Venezuela's dictator, Trump sees a Brazil trapped by elites that only a nationalist leader can break. Trump's game plan is sharp: wield tariffs to keep Brazil's economy on a leash, back the right wing to flip its politics, and lock in its resources for American factories. He'll move carefully. Brazil's too big to bully, and Lula's no pushover. Tariffs will be firm but not crippling. Trump needs Brazil's soybeans and rare earths to keep U.S. prices steady. He'll cheer Elon Musk's fight against censorship, using X to rally Brazilians who distrust their courts and leaders. And he'll, too, watch 2026 like a predator, betting on a nationalist to align Brazil with America, not Beijing or Tehran. This isn't just about Brazil, it's about America's future. If Trump pulls Brazil closer, he strengthens our economy, secures our tech edge, and screams to the world, the U.S. is back, and we're running the show. If he stumbles, China gains ground, and America's backyard becomes a free-for-all. The stakes are sky high. Now, we want to hear from you, our viewers. Brazil may seem worlds away, but its beef's in your fridge, its minerals are in your gadgets, and its choices could shape your wallet. Should Trump crank up the tariffs to bring Brazil in line, even if it means price your groceries? Or should he play nice, keeping trade smooth and building bridges? What about Venezuela? Should Trump push Lula to take a stand against Maduro, or is that a lost cause? And those Brazilian judges letting drug lords walk, does that sound like a deep state to you? Hit our website or drop your thoughts. On X, this is your country's story, and your voice can shape the next move. Let's keep the fight alive.